So I'm here today in Carcupe with my good friend Joshua, who I've just recently met. Joshua's come to Paraguay all the way from Canada, and I understand you've had some pretty interesting travels in between. So firstly, thanks Joshua for giving me the time to talk to you today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
In keeping with what we do on our channel, we just like to give people information and perspectives from people from different parts of the world. You're from Canada,
Yep.
So I think our Canadian viewers would be interested in getting your opinions about what's going on here in Paraguay. So can you just tell us a bit about how you came to choose Paraguay as a place that you might want to check out or even maybe settle in?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it kind of goes back to when we left Canada in 2021. We were leaving we just weren't happy with the state of living there at the moment, and we thought we were going to go kind of travel around and see where else we might find more comfortable for ourselves. And Paraguay kind of popped up on the radar, but it seemed like a little bit too big of a move, just maybe a little too scary at the time. And so we did end up traveling around the States, basically looking to see if we wanted to settle there. And then last year, 2023, we came to South America and traveled through South America. We went to Colombia, went to Argentina, and Paraguay was the last place on the list to come and visit. Honestly, it was kind of an afterthought. We were just like, we're down here, we might as well see it because, you know, after we go back home for Christmas, it's pretty far away.
Yeah.
And I think the things that interest in Paraguay, things that interest a lot of people. There seems to be more of a freedom here, more of a conservative culture. The tax benefits of being here and the ease of getting your temporary residence and permanent residence here as opposed to other countries. The culture and the cheapness of living, the cost of living.
Yeah. So it was Colombia, and where else did you go?
Yeah, so last year we spent 5 months in Colombia, and then we spent a month in Mexico, and 3 months in Argentina, and basically a month here in Paraguay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell me, each place you went to, were you looking at them as prospective places that you might want to settle for a longer period of time, or is it?
No, I think last year when we started out, we kind of were just being really chill and going with the flow. Something opened up to us in Colombia, so that's why we picked Colombia. A really nice lady offered to rent her house to us for a very good price in a really nice area of Colombia. So that's kind of why we went with Colombia. I think we were more leaning towards the nomadic lifestyle of digital nomads, where we would just stay somewhere for 3 to 6 months and move to another place and kind of just move around as we went. But we found for us personally was that just didn't work very well for us where we are right now, where we're trying to start up a business and get some things going online, and just some of the things that we're doing to create this lifestyle, that it seemed like it'd be easier to have a home base that we enjoyed, and from there kind of do the nomadic thing. So that's why we chose Paraguay, just to do with the fact that it's the low cost of living, and all the other things I sort of listed as benefits, and we're kind of smack dab in the middle of South America, where we can visit all these other countries as well while we're kind of establishing. So we can scratch that traveling itch while establishing a home base and building our business.
Sure, because you raised an interesting point there that I haven't really thought about before. When I was younger, like 18, I travelled overseas and things were really quite easy. You could go a couple of months here, a couple of months there. But although we've got all this technology today, I have personally found that it seems to take longer to actually, when you go to a country, to get established, to get your phones and everything else sorted, and any other issues relating to banking or so forth. So I think the notion that you can live really nomadic life and just spend a few months and whimsically sort of go to the next place, I'm not sure if that's as achievable as what it may have once been.
I mean, it seems like some people are achieving it. I think it depends on where you are in the process, and it depends on where your income is coming from and how remote and mobile that can be. And I think for us, what we found was quite expensive was just traveling from one country to the next, and you're not having a place that's set up, and it usually takes a while to get used to that place, and because of our dietary habits and that too, like we like to do a lot of our own cooking for health reasons and that, it just felt like every time you got to a new country, you got to go through this whole process again of setting everything up. And that not so much a problem, but it gets costly. Because there's what we were finding was all these costs of, okay, well, you got your plane tickets to the other country, no matter how cheap they are, there's still an extra cost. And then you get to the new country and you have simple things like taxi rides from the airport to wherever you're going, or bus rides or whatever you do. So all of that cost and time was adding up, and we felt like for us right now, we need something stable where we can set up a station, work on the things we're working on, and really focus on that, and live a cheap lifestyle that doesn't have these added up costs. And I think as we start to progress with that and we see more of an income coming in through our business and we feel more comfortable with that, we probably will do some longer trips where we were talking about we'd really like to go visit Vietnam and maybe do 3 months there. So I think we'll do that, but I'm leaning towards the fact that we'll probably keep Paraguay as a home base because of all the benefits of here, and because it's one of those places that if the world kind of goes crazy again like it did in 2020, it's somewhere we can retreat to that we feel comfortable with the way they run their society.
So how would you say Paraguay stacks up to other places that you've been to in South America? Like, why Paraguay?
Paraguay, honestly, one of the main reasons is the temporary residence and how easy it is to get that. That's probably top of the list, because everywhere else you're allowed a maximum stay of 6 months. Unless you have a special visa, and those visas usually have to do with having a regular income that you can prove, or like, so those are like the digital, I think there's a digital visa for Colombia, for example, Digital Nomad's visa. But so most of the places, your maximum amount to stay time is 6 months to a year, and then you have to like reapply. And so Paraguay was kind of like somewhere where we knew we could stay long term. They do have the 6 months rule, but if you get all your papers together and you get your application in, you usually get your temporary residence before that's an issue. Argentina was on the list because of the fact that you can do the 6 months, but then you can border run and come back in. And so that seemed like you can do that indefinitely, and that's not really much of a problem. But the problem with Argentina is just not stability with the economy right now. And that is the one thing you can say about Paraguay, is it's a pretty stable country when it comes to their economy. It's their currency is not fluctuating all over the place. The cost of living is kind of more or less stable. It converts well from the dollar to the the gurney? Yeah. So basically it was the stability and the fact that we could actually stay here long term, where everywhere else we're looking at in the world is usually about a maximum of 6 months.
Yeah, sure. And I remember when we were in Nicaragua, one of the things about doing border runs, and I suppose this is just my oversensitive imagination, but I was always just a little bit concerned about the notion that you're having to rely on someone allowing you back in.
Exactly.
And even though it's generally a given, it's not 100%.
No, and that's the thing is, so basically the hard part about that is you have to basically pack up anything that you wouldn't want to leave in the country and bring that with you, like your laptops and anything like that, and bring that across with you, or else there is a chance they just say no. And your stuff is just left in that country, and then you're gonna have to either figure out friends or someone to get it for you. And that's gonna get really complicated. So it depends on your lifestyle and how you live. If you just work with a small little laptop and a backpack, then and I used to do that when we traveled. We used to be just very small traveling, backpacking. But for the lifestyle that we're at, where we want to live here, where we're not really wanting to just backpack, we're not at that age level where we're trying to have a kids and stuff like that. It's just not conducive to that kind of travel where you're up and ending every month or something like that. We have things that we're using in computers and stuff like that for our business. My wife, for her clients, she kind of needs some stability where she can be on the same time zone and talk to them. So for us, this just worked out better for stability. It's not our top pick if we were just going off of like geographically, like where we were in Colombia, which was a small little city up in the mountains that was really had good infrastructure and everything. Was beautiful, more our style for sure than where we are here in Paraguay. It's nice here, there's nothing wrong with it, but we both come from mountain areas, and and like that beauty and of nature. And there is one thing I'll say about Paraguay is it is very green and lush and beautiful, and especially where we are, and there are hills around in that. But in comparison to that spot in specific, I would choose that spot over this spot for a number of reasons, but it just doesn't work for the visa. And also I'm more comfortable with Paraguay's political system and government and the conservativeness here, and also the freedom that seems to be here, as opposed to Colombia seems to go more of a direction that we just don't necessarily agree with politically.
And would you say the same about Argentina?
No, Argentina's a hard one because they just had a big shift now with Milei being the new president. So Argentina we really liked, but the problem with Argentina right now is the instability in their economy. So it was very cheap there when we were there last year, cheaper than Paraguay. And you're getting higher quality things for cheaper. Meat, for example, you could get a lot better, higher quality meat there than you could here. But the problem with Argentina is, and it ended up being a good choice because it was kind of between Argentina and Paraguay where we're kind of sitting. The thing with Argentina is it's a little harder to get to the permanent residence and citizenship route, for starters. But on top of that is, with this change in government, they're working towards dollarizing their currency, and that's already seen the cost of living go up substantially. And when you're trying to live on a budget, as your channel is dirt cheap, catchword, but yeah, when you're trying to live on a budget and you're growing a business and you're trying to stay there, it's not very cost effective to be in an economy that's kind of bumping up all the time or going all over, and it's not stable, especially when you're signing a 1-year lease on a rental or something like that. So for us, it was better to go here where we knew for sure the economy is pretty stable. You're not going to see prices go skyrocketing anytime soon. And yeah, so that's why we picked it over Argentina. Also, I think we just felt more comfortable here. We connected more with the location, we connected more with the people. Argentina was really great, but I think here we just felt generally more comfortable overall.
So were you in Argentina when Milei came to power?
We were actually there right when the elections went.
What was that like?
It was pretty chill compared to what I thought it would be like. It definitely wasn't like the American elections when all that went down. I think I don't fully understand the political system, but basically it seems like they have a preliminary election and then they do a secondary one to like break the tie kind of type thing. So it looked like in the first one, the primary, I guess it was, that Milei wasn't going to win. And so a lot of the people we knew who were very much wanting Milei to get in, to get this change of government, to move away from a socialistic form of government, were very disappointed and thought he wasn't going to get in. But it turned out that he, coming around to the second, people went his way and he got in. So the kind of people we were around were very happy about that. So generally speaking though, in just being in the country and talking to like taxi drivers, Uber drivers, different people, even not just the people that share our life viewpoints, they were all very much pro Milei, which was interesting being in the country because the news that we were seeing from our home countries was basically like people don't like Milei and he's like, the crazy person, and they really painted him with this bad brush. Yeah. But the citizens were on the opposite end of what was being told outside the country. Yeah. So it is kind of interesting how you don't really get a correct point of view from the news, especially the Western news about this country. So.
Yeah, it's one of the revelations, although you know it before you come overseas, but it really slaps you in the face the degree to which the news back in your place that you once called home, how much it's just ludicrous. Yeah. Isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of BS.
Yeah. So do you still have a finger on the pulse about what's going on in Argentina? Do you know about how things are turning out there?
Well, we have friends there and we hear from them. We're hearing that it's gotten hard because with this kind of change, the first thing is that the cost of living is going up for everyone because they're basically moving away from this socialistic monetary policy that is destroying their economy and their currency. And they're moving towards a policy that is going to strengthen the economy. But from our friends, we're hearing like, it's gotten harder. The cost of living has gone up, and that not the wages. So it's life is a little bit harder for them. They're okay with that. and they want to see this through. They want to see the country economy healed and get better. And so most of everyone we're talking to is not loving the situation, but realizing they need to go through these hard times to get to a better situation. We have friends in Rosario, which is pretty much, I think, the most dangerous city in Argentina. I think it's even been said one of the most dangerous ones in South America. That's where we were visiting. And it's kind of interesting because you hear this, how it's the most dangerous. We never really felt unsafe there. I mean, we didn't go walking around at night, but we never felt unsafe there, and life still goes on and everyone seems good. But it is one of the more dangerous ones, to do with a lot of drug trafficking that happens coming down the river from the Amazon and that, Bolivia and that area. But so what we've been hearing from our friends that are there, that's gotten a bit worse, because as they crack down on the corruption and the drug stuff, the gangs, of course, are fighting back. So we are hearing from our friends there in Rosario that they feel like violent crime has gone up and it's become more dangerous, and they're having to be more careful about things. So that's a real shame.
It is a shame, and let's hope it improves. And did you make many inquiries about the process of getting residence in Argentina? Is that something you would
Not a lot. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. So like I said, you can stay there for 6 months, but then you can do a border run. So I think the way it works in Argentina is it's 3 months. You get a 3 months visitor's visa. You can apply to extend that for another 6 months. After the 6 months, you have to leave the country, but I think you can leave the country and come right back the next day or on the same day, like doing a border run as you do in other countries. And as long as of course it's up to the agent you're dealing with and whether they decide that's okay, but for the most part, from what I heard from people who do that, they have had no problems, and then you can do another 6 months. As far as getting into the country, other means, I think the one that I saw that looked like the best route if you were wanting to get permanent residence and then citizenship was probably through investment. So if you could find someone there you trust who owns a business, you invest $15,000, I think that was the amount. I don't know if it's changed, into the business, and then you pretty much get your permanent residence through the application. So I think through investment is probably the quickest, easiest way. And I mean, honestly, $15,000, I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, it's not that much, but it's not that much considering a lot of other countries, it's $150,000 to $500,000 to get in through investment. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that if I was to do it, that'd probably be the route I would go. I know people there who have businesses that I trust, and I probably would invest that way. I mean, and that also opens up some interesting business opportunities, because if you are, like I am, from Canada and you now own a business in Argentina, you kind of have a foot in both doors. Don't quote me on that. It's something you'd have to look into, but I think that would open up business opportunities for the business you now own a portion of in Argentina. Yeah. So other than that, I don't have a full detail idea of how Argentina is. It's definitely not as easy as it is here in Paraguay. That I'm almost don't want to say too much about Paraguay, because I don't want them to make it harder, because we're in that process right now. I'm like, oh, if everybody decides so, let's come to Paraguay, you know, then they'll probably will get harder, I think, over time here, which could start a rush in its own self. But seems like people suddenly are becoming more and more aware of Paraguay, more and more of the benefits of having residency here. And so I think that's creating a lot of interest, and I've seen a lot more in like different Facebook groups that people are interested in getting the residency. I think part of the problem is, and maybe if they did change something, I'd appreciate this more, is that it sounds like you basically only have to visit once for like 2 weeks or something, get your stuff, and then you can just leave and you'll get your permanent residence in 2 years. So it seems like the process is a little too easy that way, and so there's a lot of people who are just doing that to get the tax benefits.
In Paraguay.
In Paraguay. Yeah, I've seen that a lot online with different Facebook groups where people are saying, oh, I just went, got my temporary residence, got my cedula, which I think is your tax number, got all that, and then they just left. They go back to Bali. And I think there's a lot of that going on, where it's like they're basically no intention of living here, but they want the permanent residence for the tax reasons and that.
Well, that's a lot of the talk that you see online is, you know, the whole notion of Plan B, and I think you know, a lot of people are sort of taking that to heart and you know, and following that path for better or worse. Yeah. But you know, part of our philosophy and our reason for having the channel is we're not wanting to encourage anyone to just come here and just get residence for the sake of it, but it's for the right people, for the right reasons to come.
Start a new life.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like we're not selling the dream, we're trying to present the reality of Paraguay, because it's not utopia, is it? It's not, there are things about Paraguay that
Definitely.
you would prefer they were different, just like any country.
Yeah, definitely.
So on that topic, what are the things about Paraguay that you really like and have surprised you?
Yeah, so we my wife and I, we really like the focus on family here.
Yeah.
Like the focus on community and family. We really like that you when you walk around here, it feels alive. There's people around and talking, and it's just that it's not so cold as it is in our countries.
Yeah.
There's more of this sense of community and friendliness. People just seem a lot more community orientated.
Yeah.
They seem to be very respectful of women and women who have children in that. There's I think there's even parking for pregnant women. Like we have handicap parking at home, they have parking for pregnant women. So there's a lot of emphasis on the family and the family unit and the respect of the family unit. And we really appreciate that. We like that it's very lush and green. It's I mean, it pretty much you don't have, it's almost sunny every day.
Yeah.
I mean, if you love the sunshine, it's just sunny every day, and we love the sunshine, and we get a little crazy when we don't have it. So, I mean, I don't think I've ever been anywhere that has this much sunshine. Haven't been here that long, but I hear that's kind of the way it is here.
Yeah.
So we love that. We love the cost of living. We love the fact that we just had to pop up to the capital city to do some things there and visit some friends. We rented an Airbnb for the night. It's so cheap. It's you don't have to feel like you're breaking the budget to do that. It's not even a thought. You're just if I want to go to Asuncion for the weekend, and you get a nice Airbnb. I mean, it was a really nice Airbnb with a view. So, and it costs hardly anything. It's the same. We ended up taking a taxi back from Asuncion, which is an hour and a half away, and that's $20. And so it's just you can do things here and it doesn't break the bank, and that's really nice. So cost of living is a huge benefit of being here. Yeah, I think that's sort of top of our list.
And what things about Paraguay do you wish were different, or have surprised you, or been different from where you've come from that you've gone?
I think our biggest annoyance is the food. It's very hard to get, especially because we're very health conscious and we have some dietary stuff that we really try to stick to. So getting organic food is not particularly easy. Now, as you're here longer, what we're finding is we now have connections where we can get organic milk, we can get organic honey, we can get different organic fruits and vegetables, but it's not like in the States where you can just go to the store and find organic products or healthy products, or products that just are conscious of a lifestyle where you don't want to eat all the additives and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's been difficult. The meat, for example, is you don't know what the practices are here, whether they're good or bad, and it's very hard to get high quality beef, for example. It tends to be very tough and chewy. So I think and that's just learning. We're learning how to cook things differently so that it's more tender, and you learn these things. So I think over time this will become less of an issue, but that's one thing that we kind of complain about is we get a little frustrated with the food sometimes and feeling limited by the situation and the fact that there's not really any consciousness about healthy food. You can go to Asuncion and there are bigger stores there that kind of try to mimic a Whole Foods or something in the States that's more of a health, more of a focus on healthier food or high quality food. But my impression so far has been more it's a fake. It's kind of they're faking it. It's not really, you're not really finding a lot of very good organic food the way you would in the States, or that have that conscious. It's kind of that fake organic where it's a mixture of a ton of preservatives with perhaps one organic ingredient. So yeah, so that's probably the one thing that we don't love. And there are certain things, my wife and I were just talking about this the other day, because we were it'd be interesting if certain individuals we know, friends, came to visit, how they would react to it. Because when you're walking around on the streets, it's not as clean, as it would be in our country. I mean, and there's areas in our countries where it's not clean too. I mean, we go to Detroit sometimes, I'm just oh my gosh, there's garbage everywhere. But they just don't have that same kind of respect for their environment when it comes to garbage. So there's a lot of litter sometimes. And if I focus on it, it's kind of like a little bit like, I don't really love that. And it's more like when you're in the cities and stuff like that. When you're out in the country, it's, again, not so much that. But we were talking about yesterday, we're like, it's what you focus on. Like, it's what you value. Like, to me, it's like, I'm not always out in the streets counting litter kind of thing. So if there's a little bit more garbage, or it's not quite as clean, or it's the infrastructure is not quite the same, you know, the sidewalks are a little broken. To me, like, that's great if you can have it, but we put a higher value on our freedom and what we're allowed to do, and the cost of living, not being under the burden of like, we have to work, both of us, 8 hours a day, and what if we have a kid, how are we even going to deal with that, and then we have to put it in school. The ability to live the way we want to and not to be so crushed financially far outweighs the fact that like there's some trash around.
And just in regards to, you know, the issues relating to food and things, I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but it's been our experience that it takes time whenever you go to a new place to really make those inroads. And for us, we've only in the last few weeks, because we've met somebody who knows somebody, we have found a place where we can get a lot of great organic food. We know where to get some great...
I want to know this somebody.
and so what we talk about a bit on our channel is about Paraguay as a place of relationships. And the saying is there's always somebody that knows somebody. And so these things are harder to source, but and it goes back also to the other point that we're talking about how you can't necessarily just land in a place like Paraguay or Argentina, Colombia, and just have everything just like you'd like it. You've got to rearrange your whole situation, don't you, to find that food stuff and to know where to get that thing.
And so I completely agree. It's one of those things that I think the longer we're here and the more connections we make, we'll solve that issue. And we already have started to. So I think I want to know this person.
I'll let you know.
And this is how it works: is you make these connections, and it starts to make things easier. But it just takes that. You just can't go to this grocery store and do it. You have to start to create these connections. You have to learn to eat in season, you know, because when things are growing, that's where you're going to get organic things. So I completely agree with you. It's just setting up shop. And we've been here about a month. I mean, we spent a month here last year, but about a month this year. And so even in that month, we've already started to create. We can get organic eggs, organic honey, organic milk. So it sounds like now we can get some organic vegetables. And so we found people where you can buy beef. So we bought like a freezer, and we're going to do it that way too, is where we can buy beef that's organic. So it's definitely possible. It just takes time to create those relationships.
And a lot of those are behind the paywall of the German community or the local community, because you know, the German community are very well established here. And although very friendly, they tend to sort of work in their own network like any community does. So if you rock up and you can't speak German, it can be a challenge. And the same with the locals. But they seem to be quite well fed, and you know, the cattle there look very happy, and I'm sure you know, everyone's doing quite well in that regard, it seems.
I think so. And I think it's just making those connections. It's normal for people to have their cliques, so to speak, because that's the way they've been living for a long time. But I think once you sort of start to make friends with people and they get to know you, I found most people here to be exceedingly helpful. I know there's been complaints. I see some aggression back and forth online in the expat groups, and there definitely seems like there's some sour types. I think they're the pre-2020 people that perhaps have been living here longer, and they're kind of grumpy. You know, you avoid those ones. But the most of the community of people that are here, and a lot of the ones that have been here longer, really just want to help you out. And I've had pretty much my experience has been nothing but people wanting to help us out and to help us feel comfortable here. And like, I just meet people, like I met a guy who's, I think they are American, but they've been here for 51 years, him and his wife, and we met him on Sunday. And he said, oh, just if you need anything, you need someone to translate for you or whatever, just give me give me a call, I'll help you out. And this is what we found the whole time we've been here. Like, you know, a guy came and picked us up at the airport because we had so much luggage and we were asking online, you know, how do we get from the airport to our Airbnb with our 10 things of luggage because we were moving here. And he said, you know, I'll just come pick you up. I have to go by there for work. And like, I think you should be careful, definitely be careful who you just let you pick up. But this guy was reputable and, you know, and we were able to basically feel comfortable with it. But otherwise, he was a stranger to just offer to pick us up. No questions asked, just wanted to help us out because, you know, we're new in Paraguay. And so that has been my experience here so far, is just meeting lovely people who are just happy to network and help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the number one thing that I always mention with Paraguay when anyone says, why do you love the place so much? I always say to people.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and it sounds like a cliche, but they're just amazing.
It's true though. It's what connected us here. It wasn't just geography, although like I said, it's not. Honestly, before we came, we thought Paraguay was just like flat and red dirt. And parts of it I think are flat and red dirt. But this area is very nice and lush. But we literally it wasn't our perfect spot.
No.
In some senses, but the people and the community were what sold it for us.
Yeah.
When we were here, it just felt like home. And I mean, I think that's what a lot of us that are moving from our homes to countries like this are looking for, is like, we've just realized in the Western world that it's just become so self-centered maybe. And there's just not this sense of working together in community, this sort of tribal mentality of having people that you work together and rely on. And it's missing. And it takes more work, but the benefits of it, especially I think even for mental health, are just great to know that you're meeting people and you're creating connections, and there's this sense of community and family and friendship that grows. And I think a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of the people who are moving and doing this lifestyle are looking for that. They're craving that. They don't want to just live in a box and be told what to do by the government. They want to have a community where they can work together to create something together.
Yeah, and just back to your point about, you know, there being people here that some of them grumpy and down on the place because of this and that and something else, is you make a good point that they're pre-2020. And if they went back, or if they had been in your country or my country during the recent troubles, they would probably look at the inadequacies of this place and probably not have such a big issue with it. And something that I talked about in a previous video was really establishing your why have you come, because when you actually come from a country like New Zealand or Canada and you really remember why you came here, all of the troubles and the challenges and things kind of pale into insignificance as far as we're concerned. We're happy to deal with all those challenges rather than the prospect of having to deal with what we've been through.
Yeah, I agree. And the challenges make life more interesting, more fun. You know, it feels more alive here. It feels like, you have to work a little harder for some things, but then you have the freedom that you're not having to work so hard to make money. You know, like you can do that if you want to. I know people who, they work all the time. That's what they do here, and they're just super ambitious. For my wife and I, like, we like to have the freedom to not have to work a full 8-hour day, that we can have time to go for a walk in the evenings, we have time to read a book, we have time to pursue other interests besides just work, and especially relationships and community. And so like we have chosen not to buy a car yet because we can walk around most of the places, and some people are like, well, one of the grocery stores we walk to, we take our backpacks and we walk there, and it's about a half an hour like walk. And people are like, why do you do that? I'm like, because it's sunny, it's nice, it's a beautiful country. You talk to people, you know, it's just because we're not so worried about time. And so it's nice to go for a walk, and, you know, so it's a different mindset and a different lifestyle. And I think back to the point about the grumpy people, I think what's hard for them is when they came here, it was really hard. And trying to figure out how to live and make money and still live a lifestyle that was European or Western. And I think what's hard for them is now they're seeing all of us come, and most of us are doing things that are digital, and making money digitally, because that's just the way the world works now. A lot of things are like that. And so they don't understand that, and they haven't pursued that. So I think it's hard because they had a hard time when they first got here and had to like basically work their way into a position, or have been stuck in a sort of medium state of poverty because they left their jobs at home and they couldn't make the kind of money here that they could make. So I think sometimes it's hard to see people like us come in and be like, oh, we're just making our money online and we're living like, we're making our money in dollars and stuff like that, and being able to live a lifestyle. I think it can be frustrating.
Yeah, there can be various things. But just the point about making money, my perspective is that this economy, once you're legally able to operate there are actually opportunities here in many areas. It's a developing country.
Yeah.
And there's a lot yet to be done. How do you feel about that?
I feel like for individuals, it'll depend on the person. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to make money, but if you're not an entrepreneurial type mindset, it can be more difficult. Because if you're coming here, say you're a welder, and you're going to want to work for someone welding, you're not going to make a very good wage. That's just, Paraguayans aren't paid anything near to the amount that someone in the States would be paid for. So if you're now come here as a welder and you set up your own business and you get it going, and maybe hire a couple Paraguayans and you train them, and you're going to start working for expats and taking, this is where I think there's a lot of opportunity to make money, or there's a lot of opportunity to make money doing things like if you're marketing yourself to expats who have the money to pay for things. But so it's kind of these two sides when I've talked to people online, because they're like, well, if I come and I do my job, can I get a job doing this? And I have a friend who's here, actually. He works for a Christian school as a teacher, but the pay's Paraguayan. So it's very hard to live at a lifestyle level that you're used to in the States or Canada or Europe on that kind of wage, because that wage is just not going to compete. It's just very low, and that's just the average wage here is very low. So I think there's lots of opportunities to make money, but it depends on the mindset of the person and if they are able to create those opportunities or work inside of those parameters. I think if you want to come here and get a job doing something like teaching or nursing or anything like that, it's going to be at a substantially lower rate than you would be in other countries.
Yeah,
I think
of course.
You've been here longer, so you might know better about that than I do.
No, I think you're generally correct. Although, there would be professions here, particularly in the capital, where, people are obviously making good money. There's real cars getting around,
sure.
and there's real wealth. There's legitimate wealth here. So it's definitely not as down as what I thought it would be in terms of the economic potential for an individual. But I do agree, outside of the capital city and the main towns, it would be a challenge, but at the same time there's a lot of cash here.
Yeah.
Tax rates are low.
Yeah.
The regulatory compliance is low. So it's pretty much like going back to the 80s in some ways in our countries, where
a ton of opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that the interesting thing is what it is that you're doing. If your job in any way is connected outside the country, then you're likely to make more money. If it's a job that's just sort of a common job here that any Paraguayan can fill, then unless they're highly educated Paraguayan, like obviously a lawyer is going to do quite well, and probably something like a doctor, although again, it's not going to be anything compared to what you'd be making in the States, but the cost of living is lower, so it balances.
Yeah.
But your general Paraguayan and their opportunities are a lot lower, and if you don't have something that puts you above the bar.
Sure.
And I think one of the things I'm noticing is there is a lot bigger disparity with the wealth. So there is not much of a middle class.
No.
It's either you're very poor or you're in the poverty lower end of this dynamic, or you're quite rich and you're on this upper end of the dynamic. But there's not a lot of middle class from what I can tell.
I think it is in a state of evolution though in that regard. If you look at, for example, the amount of land that's been subdivided around this area, for example, there's like countless amounts of these subdivisions, and a lot of them are sold. So predominantly I think to professionals from the capital or professionals in Carcupe and surrounds,
and a fair number of expats.
Yeah. So my sense is the country's changing, but it's at an interesting impasse.
Yeah, and you might have a better sense of that than I do. From what I hear, they're really working towards economic growth and trying to get the country to the point where it's considered an investment place to come to invest for internationally, because right now it's not really considered that.
No.
That's why they're also trying to deal with a lot of the corruption.
Yeah.
Supposed corruption in that, so that because I think Paraguay has had a bad name for money laundering and a lot of the money flowing through it being drug money and that. So.
Yeah, that's all of South America, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But from our experience dealing with the banks here, they seem to be really
and it sounds like, and like I said, I'm so new to this, so that's where I should probably like really take a step back, because I'm just giving opinions and things I've heard third hand. But what I have heard is the banks are being a lot more careful and strict about what's going on. I mean, even just being able to transfer money here is difficult because of they need to know that it's coming in legitimately.
Yeah, and just on a final point, given the fact that you've been in Colombia, you've been in Argentina, how's you feeling about your general level of safety and just the general crime situation?
Yeah, safety's such a weird thing with traveling and countries and that, because you always are hearing, oh, this country is not safe or this country is safe. I think what I've realized, and this goes for the States too, there are areas of all countries where it's not wise to go, especially at night, kind of thing. And then there's just certain rules that kind of apply. So where we were in Colombia is really hard to gauge Colombia on, because we could walk around at night. Like we would walk back to our house that was 15 minutes out of town, and we never felt unsafe at all. And I'd walk around with my wallet and rings on, and no worries at all. Never felt unsafe. Never heard of anything happening. I mean, it's such a sense of community there anyways, that like literally if someone tried to rob you, you just have to yell and someone pop out and help you, and you know everybody on that 50-minute trip back because they're so friendly. You meet them all walking back and forth. But Colombia as a whole, like, yeah, even the locals will tell you if you go to Medellin, the big city that was near us, it can be pretty dangerous, and you can get holed up at gunpoint or knife point for a robbery. Again, it's like danger relative to how you choose to live your life, because if you get hunted out at gunpoint, give them your wallet, and it's not a very dangerous situation. I've had this traveling the world and lots of other places too. So it's how smart you are. Don't carry things around that you're worried about being stolen, that kind of thing. That's Colombia. Here I feel the same. We walk around, we don't feel unsafe. I don't feel like I'm worried about being robbed. I still don't walk around flashing my expensive cell phone out in front of everybody, or carrying huge amounts of money, anything like that, because it is a poorer country, and you don't want to put that temptation there to people who are trying to feed their kids, and your cell phone could cover them for a year. So as far as like safety, I can't say that I've ever felt unsafe in any of the places I were in South America, but we were careful about how we went about living in certain places like Rosario in Argentina. We didn't go out at night because the locals said it's not a wise idea to go out at night. Never felt unsafe. It's always odd though. Here we've heard stories of things happening, robberies at gunpoint, that kind of thing. It's few and far between. And the truth is, I've heard of that in New York. I've heard of that in Arizona. I've heard of that in California. Well, I mean, California's a complete mess. There's far worse stuff going on there. So again, it's relative. And I think no matter where you are, you're going to hear it. And always stuff that is like exciting gets gossiped about and passed around. Yeah. So do I feel safe? Yeah, I feel completely safe. Do I feel comfortable having my wife here with me? Yeah, totally. I would never put her in danger. And do I feel comfortable like having a kid and raising a kid here? Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Hey, well, thanks a lot for your perspective.
No problem.
I know a lot of people that watch are from Canada, so it's a very interesting perspective to have, particularly with your other travels. So I hope that it continues to go well for you, and
thank you.
We become fellow Paraguayan residents.
Well, I need to get your food contact.
Yeah, well, now you know, man.
Now we definitely have to be friends.
So that's right on camera. That's how it works. Just, you talk to someone, and someone knows someone.
Totally.
Cool, man.
Yeah, and I would say take everything I've said with a grain of salt. This guy's more of an expert than I am, and it's all conjecture and opinions. In the end, you got to come and live the life to see for yourself. And I think that's what I recommend to any of your viewers who are considering it. For us, coming and spending the month here to just kind of be around and get into the feel of it. I mean, even last year, the year of traveling really helped to know that, we felt totally comfortable.
All right, thanks, buddy.
No worries.
Appreciate your time, and I hope that's been useful and informative to everyone. So until next time, ciao.
Bye.